It's not too often that a new game comes out and reminds you of something you would have played in the GameCube or Wii era, unless it's a remaster, which in that case it's just playing the same game again. But indie studios are actively working to create experiences that remind people of their childhood. Every day it seems a new indie studio has come along with their new Metroidvania, Souls-like, Zelda-inspired game or something of the sort. Enter Blue Fire. Blue Fire is a game developed by Robi Studios. It's an extremely unique game that borrows ideas like platforming and backtracking from Metroid, puzzling and dungeon settings from Zelda, aesthetics from Hollow Knight and Dark Souls, and even sprinkles in some Mario Galaxy style bite-sized levels in the vein of Voids. But why am I sitting here talking to you about it? Let's get into the game. It's set in a large open-ended kingdom in the sky called Penumbra with 7 main areas, 8 if you include DLC. The areas create a feeling of a kingdom that has fallen, became corrupt by shadowy figures that haunt most of the game's overworld. Coming from a story standpoint, the areas in the game do stay consistent with the story, and to further some of the game's lore into the world, throughout the entire game there's this malice-like infestation on the walls or ground that constantly reminds you that the kingdom is in danger. It was great to see that the dev team remembered to reinforce this idea even in some of the last levels of the game. I want to talk about the combat now, as this is probably the weakest portion of the game. I found that most enemies and even bosses could be cheesed just by simply jumping above their head and repeatedly bouncing off of them with attacks to keep momentum and ultimately finish the enemy without any damage taken. This was pretty disappointing to see, as most other games such as Zelda or Dark Souls offer many different ways to fight enemies rather than just sword hit thing kill. And I understand it's difficult to compare a $20 indie to something AAA, but there's games made by much smaller studios that offer deeper combat than this. I would hope for a future installment in the franchise to offer something even as simple as a strong or weak attack option, or add in a new weapon type to give the game some more flavor. Switching the topic now to customizability. I find this to be important for the modern adventure game, especially after Breath of the Wild. While armor doesn't do anything stats-wise in this game, it does offer great cosmetics to the other aesthetics of the game, and there's even sets that are offered for doing some serious completionist work. One chest found in one of Blue Fire's many areas, the Temple Gardens, offers a banana costume. In the DLC, you're able to get a duck costume out of this special little shrine. And there's also a special silver version of the starting tunic that can be obtained for completing all of the game's voids. Alright, at this point in the video, you are now getting a spoiler warning. I'm about to enter into the story content of the game, so if you have interest in that, I would go ahead and go play the game now, come back, and then finish the review. Anywho, 3, 2, 1. You immerse yourself as a knight of the shadows in the kingdom of Penumbra, who is tasked with the goal of saving the land from the Shadow Queen. You're guided throughout the game by a former knight of the kingdom named Vaughn, who teaches you lore of Penumbra through dialogue and generally provides good exposition to the game's story. If I had to compare this, I would say think of Vaughn like Kaepora Gaebora from Ocarina of Time, providing you wisdom and insight throughout a good chunk of the game's story. Anyway, now that we've explained him, you need to quell 5 lords of the kingdom throughout the duration of the game, which deals with a lord centered around fire, one with water, ice, earth, and then finally poison. Freeing these parts of the land from shadow nature allow you to then come to the entrance to the Temple of the Gods and fight the Shadow Queen. It's a pretty short and to the point sort of story, but it gets the job done as much as you really need with, what's going on here, just due to the combat, the platforming and whatnot. Most of this game's kind of focused more on the gameplay, not really so much the story. As far as DLC goes, the game will offer you 2 DLC expansions free of charge. The first being the Void of Sorrows DLC. This adds in a new area to the game that acts as a hub for you to revisit the voids from the main game while also going through 16 brand new voids. The expansion focuses on the former army guard of the kingdom and eventually shedding light on a rogue army that betrayed the queen, and leading up to the plot twist of Vaughn being the leader of the rogue movement, secretly plotting the entirety of the game's story to revive the rogue army and overthrow the queen once more. The second DLC is less compelling, but it is also free, so take that into account. The DLC is just a new, level editor, so people can do custom levels. I believe it's actually just the voids instead of like regular levels. I haven't really touched too much on that part of the game yet. Not really my thing, but really cool of the dev team to do again, because it just adds, so much life to this game, and it allows it to continue on even after they're done supporting it. So now we're going to talk about the side quests of the game. With most adventure games like this, you won't really see side quests offering way too much to the game's story. That's usually going to be saved for more deep RPG style games. And in Blue Fire, it's pretty much most of the same. Side quests pretty much involve you going and grabbing a rose for somebody that's, lost their lover and wants to get them back, or maybe somebody wants to give you something, but you have to pay them for it. Or maybe somebody just wants to give you something out of the goodness of their heart. That's generally about how the side quests go on this game. You can get some good rewards from them, but in a sequel, I would much prefer to see some longer storyline quests come out of the side quests, if that makes sense, but also get some better rewards for doing so. Lastly, I want to touch on the voids. So with the voids, they're very unique. They offer these really hard platforming challenges, and they reward you with something really, really good in the form of heart pieces, which Zelda, take a note from these guys. They're doing it in a really cool way. Of course, you have something like shrines in Breath of the Wild, but those are pretty much just little puzzles. With this, it's like a full-on platforming challenge. Maybe offer something a little bit deeper in Breath of the Wild 2, something like that. But that's reviewing an entirely different game. Let's get back on topic. These guys are really awesome, though. They offer really cool setting to the game, but also they range pretty well in difficulty. It goes from 1 star up to 5 stars. And let me just say this, they can be either easy as shit, or they can be super, super hard. No! Wow, and of course, now that I fucking recorded, I fucking do it. Awesome. There was a couple of these where I, actually wanted to pull my hair out because of how hard it was. And that just was not a great feeling, but nonetheless, good job. There's also the DLC, of course, which is the Void of Sorrows DLC. With it, it adds in those 16 voids, like I was saying earlier. And one of the voids that I was touching on a little bit earlier, I'll kind of rephrase that here, is an actual duck shrine. So you walk in, it's like a secret area, and it's this Easter egg where there's just ducks lining up a straight path, just all these duck statues. So really cool that they kind of got more creative with the DLC's voids instead of just the regular voids that you see in the main game. They started doing some more Mario Galaxy style stuff in the DLC too, with tons of moving platforms and these winding pathways that really make you think about how you're going to move, or even catch you surprised sometimes. But now, pretty much for the end of the video, would I recommend you to buy this game? Yes, I would definitely recommend it. It's $10 right now on Steam at least. $20 at regular price. It's just definitely worth the price point that they're asking for, and just gives you a really good story, really good gameplay, and mediocre combat, I would say. But most certainly buy the game. I look forward to what the studio does in their next release. Hopefully, it's something that at least kind of resembles this universe, because this game is just awesome, and it really kind of stinks that not a lot of people know about this game just yet. So let me know in the comments, have you heard about Blue Fire before? Will you be checking it out after watching this video? And what other games would you like me to review? Thanks, you guys, and have a great one.